Thank you both. Thank you. If you've been checking in with us the last few weeks, you'll know that our beloved Reverend Cathy is stepping down as our senior minister beginning January 1st. I don't know if that means she'll be still speaking after. We don't know. But I'm happy to say with utter confidence, we all love you, Cathy. And not only that, she is our speaker for today. Ladies and gentlemen, Cathy Hough, Reverend Cathy Hough. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, this slide on the screen portrays the first thing I look at every morning when I wake up. Years ago, my husband ventured out of what he used to refer to as the tired husband's chair. In this case, he was sitting with some other old men in the row of chairs that is inside the entrance to Ross. He called them the tired husband chairs. Waiting patiently, probably commiserating with the other old gents who were also waiting for their wives to finish shopping. But I don't know what compelled him, because this day he got up out of his tired husband chair and went roaming around the store. And I do know that he came home with this picture, which he proceeded to hang in the doorway that faces our bed above the doorway. I remember him saying that waking up to this powerful reminder would ignite our brain power every morning. Doug was a man of great imagination, and he delighted both in designing and creating form. He always wanted to be one of Walt Disney's Imagineers. In his own small way, he really was. So Friday, I was graced by a visit from my granddaughter and her boyfriend who live in Seattle, and we were having lunch, and she began sharing memories of her childhood visits to her grandfather's 8-acre ranch. She said it was magical, Grammy, and she started to share her memories. And she remembered cruising in a small canoe in the pond that her pappy dug with his beloved backhoe. She also remembered crossing the bridge over the pond, which to a little girl seemed monumental. And this is the bridge her grandfather built as well. But most of all, she remembered the cable ride that Doug constructed that flew down the mountain and thrilled all of us with its carefully designed narrow misses. I can still hear the screams of the first-time riders. "Oh my God, I'm going to hit the barn," as they flew down the hill, followed by, "Oh, thank God," as the ride always slowed to a perfect stop just inches away from the barn siding. It was Walt Disney who said many of the things that seem impossible now will become realities tomorrow. And as we pause for guidance during the month of August, we get to address, as Sandi said, this wonderful topic of sparking imagination. We all have vivid and fertile imaginations, and when our inner vision fills and flows with what we perceive to be new thoughts or inklings or ideas or feelings or intuitions, we have sparked our imagination. And all of us are infused and surrounded by a presence that is continually imagining and reimagining itself as us. As our growth in consciousness, as our acts of compassion, as our explorations of greater love, as our adventures into the unknown. Jalmar van Zandt wrote, "Life infused us with the power to conceive, to express, and to enjoy the fruits of our creative power. We create through thought, word, and deed, and we are each here to reveal the creative ideal of the divine. It begins when we're young, and it blossoms when we reach greater understanding of this creative power that accompanies us from birth to death, and yes, even beyond, because I'm still captivated. I've shared this with you before. I'm captivated by Steve Jobs' final words as he was exiting his body. He said, "Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Imagine." How many of you have memories like this that were shared by this author who remains unknown? This author wrote, "When I was a child, I played in bed at night with all kinds of fantasies. I would imagine I was a submarine, moving in the depths of the ocean. But that prevented me from going on land, so I pretended I was a tank, roaming over the lands, easily busting through mud and rock, breaking through walls. But then I wanted to reach the sky, so I became an airplane, soaring and gliding. But as a plane, my domain was only the sky. Finally, one night, I decided I would be all three at once, some kind of fantastic machine, the likes of which the world had never seen. I could fly, I could explore the oceans, I could move on land. I could go anywhere." I can identify with this author because I had many daydreams going on when I was getting ready to go to sleep at night, my bedtime musings, if you will. But these bedtime musings were much tamer than these boy fantasies involving time travel and exciting modes of transportation. But no matter what the nature of our nighttime journeys of the mind, what we were doing, and maybe are still doing, is identifying ourselves and our bodies with a larger life, as we learn that in the author's words, we are a forever expanding sphere rather than a straight line. We are an ever-expanding sphere. Author George Bernard Shaw understood that imagination is the beginning of creation. You imagine what you desire, you will what you imagine, and at last you create your will. And damned if my childhood dreams of being the school teacher did not evolve into reality as, let me try this again. My childhood dreams of becoming a teacher evolved into reality because teaching has been integrated into every single profession I have undertaken as an adult. But I can also see now how much my child imagination was limited by the cultural norms and expectations that unknowingly wove their way into my consciousness concerning the dreams that were acceptable for young women. And back in the day, we were only encouraged to think about growing up and becoming housewives, or nurses, or secretaries, or teachers. And since I wasn't real excited about the idea of cooking and cleaning all day, I wasn't real excited about blood and incisions, and I certainly wasn't excited about typing and filing all day, I began by default to dream about becoming a teacher. And that did not turn out too badly for me. But still, I just think it's wonderful to note how evolution has expanded. And now the field is endless possibilities that young women may now envision and imagine for themselves. In The Mystery of Genesis, Charles Fillmore, who is the founder of our sister teaching Unity, wrote this. He wrote, "The world of imagination is in the realm of ideas, where another dimension of mind opens. The imaging faculty gives us the ability to project ourselves through time and space and rise above limitations. Even when the conscious mind is asleep, the imagination soars and we dream." And we all know that the teachings of the science of mind are all about understanding that visualizing the unseen is the beginning of the creative process, during which time we duplicate the self-giving nature of the spirit that lives within us and localizes through us as ideas, intuition, and imagination. Through evoking and fueling our curiosity, we begin to intuit new ways of being, and we integrate new practices that energize and expand our divine presence in the world as we prove the metaphysical principles for ourselves. As newcomers to the science of mind and spirit, we are taught to make definite the infinite, and we're also given the caveat, this or something better, to add to our prayers. I don't know about you, but I often add this prayer when I want to go beyond my self-imposed limitations, whether they're conscious or unconscious. I want to tap into the vast possibilities contained within the infinite mind of God. This or something better helps me move in that direction. Everyone is imbued with the power to duplicate the creative nature of living spirit through imagination. And Dr. Larry Dossey tells this story about Bill Russell, who was one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And Bill Russell was once picked as a member of a California all-star team that was touring the Pacific Northwest for a month. After a week on the tour, Russell reported, "Something happened that opened my eyes and chilled my spine." He was sitting on the bench watching every move made by two-star players. Then he shut his eyes and visualized the play. And then he replayed it in his imagination with himself making the moves. And when he got into the game for real, he made the play as if he had become his teammate. He said it was like stepping into a film and following the signs. Yes, imagination is powerful. And we need to remember that the quality and character of one's imagination often corresponds to one's mental and emotional state. And it's amazing to me how easily a shift in mental state can instantaneously turn imagination into catastrophizing. Yesterday, I was deep into writing this talk, and Adam called me about a mutual friend of ours who had been experiencing some health challenges. And we began to share our stories and our concerns, and I found myself quickly moving into worst-case scenario scripts. And I had to stop myself, and I started laughing, and I said, "Adam, I'm trying to write a talk about imagination, and this shift in events does not bode well for the message I'm trying to convey." So, of course, I hung up the phone. I moved away from my computer. I went outside on my deck where the sun was shining and the birds were singing so that I could shift my thinking and move into affirmative prayer and the knowing that all really was well. But this was a huge reminder of how easily I can feel adrift and separated from the living spirit. Whenever my thinking becomes agitated or anxious or separated, or disconnected, or it's dominated by thoughts of lack, limitation, scarcity, or density, this mental and emotional state can trigger fears that negate the spiritual reality of my being. And then I can easily move into imagining the most dire of possibilities. So, of course, I'm really grateful that I have tools that I can use to bring me back to center and to lead me back to prayer. Because it is when I'm feeling calm and receptive and connected and affluent and abundant and free and refreshed, all of those things. It's when I'm feeling any or all of those things that I can nurture the sparks of imagination toward the highest and best possibilities. So to move me in the direction I desire, I can ask myself two clarifying questions at the time. The first is my imagination running away from or running toward my highest and best good? The second is, am I mindful of a triggered imagination versus a sparked imagination? Big difference. And I need to ask myself, I don't know about you, but I got to ask myself these things more often in these times of mounting fear and endless horror stories that keep filtering through and getting to me even though I am on a pretty strict news fast. There's a lot out there that can trigger rather than spark our imagination. There's a lot out there that can take up space, rent space in our heads. So then that leads me to the third question that I might ask. Am I committed to taking time each day to imagine the best for myself and for all beings everywhere? Because it is a calm and receptive consciousness that will spark rather than trigger my imagination. And the more easily and frequently I am calm, composed, and connected, and in the flow, the more I can constructively use my imagination to see beyond conditions and envision and create more good. When I'm able to imagine something greater and more expansive than the current conditions, I naturally create a greater life for myself and for others. Dr. Holmes says, imagination carries with it feeling and conviction, which means life and action. Those of you who may have visited Epcot Center in the past, you might remember this joyous little winged purple dragon named Figment, as in figment of your imagination, who charms children and Disney-loving adults alike with the words of his song. Imagination, imagination, a dream can be a dream come true with just that spark from me and you. One little spark of inspiration is at the heart of all creation, right at the start of everything that's new. One little spark lights up for you. I think that all pregnant moms should be playing this song to their children in utero. This is the message our children need to come up with. I think Dr. Holmes, I know Dr. Holmes would have enjoyed Figment's positive spin on imagination, because Dr. Holmes instructed us our prayers should be filled with conviction, warmth, color, and imagination. The creative power responds to feeling more quickly than mental attitude. So when we remember that everything is created twice, first in the inner world of our imagination, then in the outer world of form and effects, we're more inclined to nurture our imagination until it reveals our inner genius, and we become willing to delve fully into the creative process with faith in our ability to manifest what is yet unseen. The Reverend Scott Aubrey says, manifestation is turning potentiality into actuality, the unknown into the known, the unseen into the visible. Though it often seems like it, there is no magic in the process, which involves us simply working with natural laws to shape and fill our lives according to our desires and our vivid imagination. The power resides in our ability to imagine. And we need to understand that manifestation involves more than just acquisition. It's the forming of a relationship. Everything is composed of energy and patterns and vibrations. And in the words of Reverend Scott, ultimately, we don't create something out of nothing. That which we seek already exists, and you already exist. Doesn't it follow then that it's just a matter of aligning our energies forming a relationship between you and that which you imagine? It's not an acquisition, it's an alignment. We are synthesizing a pattern here. We're weaving a set of relationships and connections, and this is the soul's journey. This is creative imagination. We creatively use our imagination to manifest something when we're willing to accept and incorporate its nature and its essence into our own pattern. When we co-create, we are aligning with that which already exists in mind with a capital M, and it is our soul's journey to do this. Pure spirit is in the midst of every act of co-creation initiated through our imagination. And the act of manifestation is not just our little selves working hard and trying to think positively and make something happen. It's the power and grace of God at work. And ultimately, the only thing we manifest is more of God. More love, more joy, more abundance, more health, more beauty, more peace, more wisdom, and more good. Poet John Keats said, "I am certain of nothing but the holiness of the heart's affections and the truth of imagination." We move into expressing all that we were meant to be when we expand our vision into seeing and believing in new possibilities. Dr. Holmes teaches, never limit your view of life by any past experience. The possibility of life is inherent within the capacity to imagine what life is, backed by the power to produce this imagery or divine imagination. So this week, I invite you to amplify your intention to be mindful and appreciative of your fertile and vivid imagination. This might mean that you adjust, attune, and redirect your spiritual practices to include more imagination and creative expression. So you might want to notice each time you have new thoughts or ideas or nudges or inklings or intuition. And in that moment of imagination, also notice the feelings or qualities that arise. And then notice any emotions flowing from these feelings and how your imagination shifts your entire being, spirit, mind, and body. You might try incorporating a mini visioning session into your daily spiritual practice by asking yourself each morning, what is Spirit's highest idea for me today? And then listening and paying attention to the answer you receive. And here are some other tips to spark your imagination. And I've found these on the Thrive Global website. The author suggests to establish a creative morning ritual. And he says, I start most days with a small creative ritual. Before the rest of the house wakes up, I drink my coffee, grab my art supplies, and I journal. He also suggests to try working from another location, an unfamiliar location, and says at least once a week I leave my office desk to work in a different place. It could be a coffee shop. It could be a park. He says play a game with your kids. I say, okay, or your grandkids, or your dogs, or another adult, because when we become playful, we reconnect with our creativity and we're fully in the moment. Spend time in nature. We all know the power of nature to inspire us, to calm us, to make us center in what is real and what is true. So spend some time in nature and meditate. And the author says here, since I started my inner wellness journey through meditation, I've felt a burst of creative energy emerge from me, and it has led me to do many things I have never thought I'd do. If you don't think you're good at meditating, this is a little advertisement. Join us at 8 o'clock every morning in the virtual sanctuary for a beautiful guided meditation and prayer. And lastly, reframe your limiting beliefs. First of all, we have to take the time to recognize them and bring them forth before we can release them and reframe them. So it's always a good idea to notice what you're thinking and go, wait, as we like to say, cancel clear. That's not true for me. Yeah, we can shift. We can let go of limiting beliefs that get in our way. Albert Einstein once wisely stated, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. He also said, oh, Coco, you didn't like that one? Try this one. Einstein also said, imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. So let's spark our imagination this week to ensure that our coming attractions manifest as health, abundance, peace, wisdom, love, and joy. And so it is.
Can I get a rah-rah? Rah-rah. All right, you make me proud. You make me proud.